Welcome back, everybody. We're going to finish up this Algebra 1, Chapter 3 test review. We left off on question 4, talking about babysitting. And part B says you babysit for 4 hours, so find the domain and range of the function. Well, if we babysit for 4 hours, we can start with 0 hours that we babysit, and we can go all the way to 4 hours. So that would be our domain, because we could babysit for an hour and a half or 3 hours, 15 minutes. So it's not necessarily a full hour that we will need to be there or will be there. In order to find our range for that, though, we'd have to plug each of those values in. So if I said, well, I'm not going to babysit any hours, X would be 0. How much would we have in our bank account? Well, 10 times 0 is 0, and 0 plus 100 is 100. Remember that range is Y is less than or equal to. Then we need to plug in 4. So 10 times 4 plus 100, that's 40 plus 100. 100 plus 40 is 140. So we can babysit between 0 and 4 hours. And the amount of money then we would have in our bank account would range between $100 to $140. Linear or nonlinear? Remember, in order to answer that question, we need to find the rate of change if we're on a table. So let's see, our X values are going up 2 to 7 to 12 to 17. So we're adding 5 each time. And then 2 to -1 to -4 to -7. That means we're subtracting 3 each time. Remember, it doesn't matter that the 5 and the -3 are the same. What matters is that all of the X's are increasing by 5 and all of the Y's are decreasing by 3. So this is linear because the rate of change is constant. For number 6, well, we can see from this graph that it is not a straight line, which would mean it's not linear. But so we would put not linear. And a reason could be not a straight line. The other thing we could say is our rate of change over here, if I'm tracing the graph, that rate of change is decreasing. On this side, the rate of change is increasing. So the rate of change is not constant. One is negative, one is positive. For number 7, we're talking about buying movie tickets. And so it looks like you have maybe $60 to start with, and then it's $8 per movie ticket. So find the domain of the function. Well, that means we need to know how many movie tickets we can have. So what would the y-intercept be, or when I would have no money left? Because it says y in dollars of money after buying movie tickets. So when will I have $0 left? We'll subtract 60 to the other side. It's -60 equals 60 minus 60 is 0, -8x. The opposite of multiplying by -8 is dividing by -8 on both sides. These -8 simplify to +1, and -60 over -8 is about +7.5. I can't buy half a ticket. So it looks like I would probably round down because this is when I'm already going to have $0 left. If I made it 8, I would have negative dollars. So 7 would be the max amount of tickets that we could buy. So our domain would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And it is discrete. It is discrete because we have to buy a whole ticket. We have to buy a whole ticket. We cannot buy part of a ticket. So if I were to graph this, I'm going by 5s here. And by 1s on the x-axis for tickets. And we know that we're up here starting at 60. And then our maximum amount that we would do is 7 tickets. So what would 7 tickets be? 60 minus 8 times 7. That's 60 minus 56. So that would be $4 left. So $4 and 7 tickets is roughly right here. And so we would go through and find all of those values in between, and they would all be dots. They are all dots because this is, again, discrete. Discrete means we can't connect the dots because we can only have whole tickets. All right, evaluate the function when x is -3, 0, and 5. So for number 8, we start with plugging in -3. Remember, this is telling us x is changing to each one of those things. This is not f times -3. This is f of -3. And that means that we change this x in our equation to whatever is in our parentheses here. So -3 plus 8, -3 plus 8 is 5. So our answer to that is 5. F of 0 means we change x to 0. 0 plus 8 is 8. Then it says f of 5. So we change x to 5. 5 plus 8 is 13. We're doing the same thing for number 9. We have our g function here. This is talking about this x. And so we're changing that x right there in that equation. So g of -3, g of not g times -3, g of -3 is equal to 4 minus 3 times -3. Following order of operations, -3 times -3 is positive 9, and 4 plus 9 is 13. So g of -3 is 13. G of 0, 4 minus 3 times 0. 3 times 0 is 0. So 4 minus 0 says g of 0 is 4. And then it says plug in 5. So g of 5, 4 minus 3 times 5. 3 times 5 is 15. So 4 minus 15 is negative 11. For 10 and 11, they're giving us the answers. So like we got 5, 8, 13. They're giving us these values, and they want us to find what value is it that we put into the parentheses to change x. So for 10, they're saying the answer is 49. 49 is equal to 7x. You put that in there. Solving for x, the opposite of 7 times x, is to divide by 7. 49 divided by 7 is 7. So the x value we plugged in was 7. Then do the same thing for number 11. They're telling us that the equation is equal to 19. So we plugged something in for x, and that answer there was 19. So if I do that math, we have 19 is negative 5x minus 1. Add 1 to both sides. 20 is equal to negative 5x. This adds to 0. The opposite of multiplying by negative 5 is dividing by negative 5. 20 divided by 5 is negative 4. So negative 4 is equal to x. And that's the answer they're looking for. Number 12 is asking us to graph. Now remember, we talked about various methods for graphing. And for me, these are already in y equals mx plus b form. Remember, g of x and y are the same thing. F of x and y are the same thing. H of x and y are the same thing. They're just saying, hi, I'm a function. I've passed the vertical line test, or you checked and there are no repeating x values. So that means for number 12 that my slope is negative 2. Remember, I can make that a fraction by putting it over 1 for my rise over run. And then my y-intercept, which is b, is negative 3. And it's negative 3 because remember that was plus b, and we have minus b there. So to graph that, I'm going to plot my negative 3, and then it's negative 2. So down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1. And there's our graph. 13 is the same thing. 13, we have it in slope-intercept form. Remember, h of x and y are the same thing, so y equals mx plus b. That means that m is 2/3, and our y-intercept is positive 4. So to graph this, and so we have plotting negative or positive 4 first for our y-intercept. And then our slope is 2 over 3. So up 2, right 3. Up 2, right 3. And there's our line. More graphing. So talking about a couple of different ways, the last couple we did were both already in slope-intercept form. For 14 and 15, they are not in slope-intercept form. So I think for those, I'm going to find intercepts. I'm going to start with the x-intercept. That means we're plugging in 0 for y. 4 times 0 is 0. Anything, 0 from anything is just itself. 8 times x, the opposite of multiplying by 8, is dividing by 8. These 8's reduce to 1, so we have 1x is equal to 2. The y-intercept, plug 0 in for x, so 8 times 0 minus 4y is equal to 16. 8 times 0 is 0. Minus 4y from 0 is still negative 4y. And then the opposite of negative 4 times y is dividing by negative 4 on both sides. So y is equal to negative 4. I can plot these two on my coordinate grid and get my line that way. So I plot x is 2, y is negative 4, and draw my line. "15 is in the same format, so I'm going to find intercepts again for this one. Remember, you can graph any way you want. For my x-intercept, I'm plugging 0 in for y. And so 3 times 0 is 0. Oops, I forgot my x there. 0 from anything is itself, so we stay negative 12x. The opposite of multiplying x by negative 12 is to divide. Negative 12 over negative 12 is positive 1. And 36 divided by negative 12 is negative 3. Our y-intercept here, negative 12 times 0 minus 3y is equal to 36. 12 times 0 is 0. 0 minus 3y is still negative 3y. And the opposite of multiplying y by negative 3 is to divide by negative 3. And we get x is equal to, y is equal to negative 12. So to graph this, so I'm plotting x is negative 3, y is negative 12, and there's our line. For number 16, we have y is equal to negative 5. So we have negative 6 there. That is one of our special lines. It is horizontal. Y is negative 5 right here, 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 here. And so there is my horizontal line. 17, x is equal to positive 6. This is another special line. It's our vertical line. X is 6 right here, 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 here. And so that's how we get this vertical line. All right, last page. Finding slope from the table. So remember, there's a couple of different ways that we could do this. I'm going to start over with 18 and say, can we find the rate of change? Because the rate of change and slope are the same thing. So from 6 to 11 to 16 to 21, adding 5, add 5, add 5. Okay, that's consistent. On the right side with y, 9 to 15 is 6, and 6, and 6. So the rate of change is constant. Remember, slope is y over x. Y is 6, x is 5. So our slope here is 6/5. The other way that we've talked about finding slope from these tables is to use slope formula. So a reminder of slope formula, we have y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And you can pick any two ordered pairs you want to. They can be next to each other. They don't have to be next to each other. They don't have to be the first one. They don't have to be the last one. So I'm going to pick the middle two. And if I plug those in for slope, let's see, I'm going to label that y2, y1, x2. Oh, sorry. That's a 1. And x2. 2's, 1's. So y2 is 5 minus y1 is negative 2. Be careful that you have both the subtraction from the formula and the negative from the number over 3 minus 3. Minus negative becomes adding, so 5 plus 2 is 7. 3 minus 3 is 0. Whoop, we can't have that 0 in the denominator. So this is one of our special slopes that is undefined or no slope. Versus if I'm over here on number 20, let's see. This time I'm going to pick the first one and the third one. I'm going to have this be y1, x1, y2, x2. Because remember, it doesn't matter which is which as long as you're consistent. So y2 is negative 1 minus y1 is negative 1 over x1 is 1 minus x2 is negative 4. Add the opposite. Negative 1 plus 1 is 0. Add the opposite. 1 plus 4 is 5. 0 over 5 is 0. So this is another one of our special slopes, which is 0 slope. Remember, 0 slope and no slope are two different things. All right. Still graphing our equations. For 21 is already in slope-intercept form. My slope is 2, or 2 over 1, and my y-intercept here is 4. And again, I know that because the y is alone. So to graph 21, and then my y-intercept is 4, so I start there. And then my rise over run, up, 2, right, 1, up, 2, right, 1. A couple of dots there, and connect them for your line. For 22, that is not in slope-intercept form. Couple ways we could do this. We could get this into slope-intercept form. All I would need to do, the opposite of subtracting 5x is adding 5x. And now y is alone. That means that my slope is 5, or 5 over 1, and my y-intercept is negative 10. We could also have done finding x and y intercepts for that one, if that was something that you would rather do. And so I'm plotting -10 for my y-intercept. My slope, up 5, right 1. Up 5, right 1. And connect those dots. (23). Again, we can do the work to make this into slope-intercept form. Or what we can do is find our intercepts. So for the x-intercept, we have x plus 3 times 0 is equal to 9. 3 times 0 is 0. X plus 0 is x. So our x-intercept is 9. For our y-intercept, we plug 0 in for x. So 0 plus 3y is equal to 9. 0 plus 3y is 3y. Divide by 3, divide by 3, and y is equal to 3. So plotting x is 9. Oops, I didn't go far enough, sorry on that. Far enough in the wrong direction. So I have x is 9 and y is 3. And there's our line. All right, 24. 24 is asking us to kind of decipher what it is that it is talking about. So we start with the dependent variable decreases 2 units. So remember, our dependent variable is y. And so that's a -2 because it's decreasing. For every 3 units, the independent variable increases. Our independent variable is x, and it's increasing 3, so that's +3. So remember, our slope is y over x, and that makes it -2/3. Graph when h of 0 is 2. So remember, that was x, and now it's 0. So we have an ordered pair of 0, 2. Well, this ordered pair is also the y-intercept. So we now know our slope is -2/3 and our y-intercept is at +2. That allows us now to graph this. And so I'm plotting +2 for my y-intercept, and then going down 2, right 3, down 2, right 3. And there's my line for 24. Last but not least, reviewing a little bit about inequalities and solving. Remember, we solve inequalities like we do any other equation. Very little differences. We have to worry about this inequality sign at the end. So we're still combining like terms. So I want to move the m's together. Every time we're combining like terms, we are adding or subtracting. So to move this m over, I'm going to subtract m from both sides. That leaves me with 5. Those add to 0. We have less than 8 plus 2 minus 1 is 1m. You can write the 1 there, but remember you don't have to. Now to finish getting m alone, we're moving 8 with its like term. The opposite of a +8 is a -8. And so 5 minus 8 is -3. It's less than. Those add to 0. and we have m. Remember, you can leave it this way, or if you preferred your variable to be on the left, pick it up and flip it this way. As long as the inequality is still opening to the m, it opens to the m here, opens to the m here, then we haven't changed the problem. The only thing we've done is write it in a way that maybe makes it a little easier for us to graph it, if they asked us to graph. So number 2, I'm going to do the same thing. I want to move my d values together. This is a negative d. The opposite is to add d. That adds to 0, so I have 1 is greater than 1 plus 4 is 5d minus 7. The opposite of subtracting 7 is to add 7. 1 plus 7 is 8. And we have 5d, and those add to 0. Our last step, the opposite of multiplying by 5 is dividing by 5. And so we have 8/5 is greater than d. Number 3, I can add these two together. Remember, we're not moving it over our equal sign or our inequality, so we don't do anything opposite. We're just saying, okay, I have 9 g's here and 4 g's sitting right next to them. So how many total if I group them all together? And that would be 13 g's. Now, if I want to move my g value from the -4 and the 13, remember, combining like terms, always adding and subtracting. The opposite of a -4g is a +4g. And again, I have to do opposite operations because I'm going across the inequality sign right there. So 13 plus 4 is 17g. That adds to 0. My next step would be to subtract the 5 to its like term. That leaves me with 17g. The 5's over on the left side, add to 0, is greater than or equal to -9. And then the opposite of multiplying g by 17 is dividing g by 17. 17 over 17 is 1, so we have g is greater than or equal to -9/17. Remember, I don't flip the inequality sign because I am dividing, but I'm dividing by a +17. We don't care that that's a negative right there. We care that the 17 is positive. Number 4, we have dividing, and then we have 2 over here. So we need to move this 2 first. The opposite of a +2, and remember, we don't check here, we check what's in front, is -2. So we're subtracting 2 from both sides. 2 minus 2 is 0. And 7 minus 2 is 5. So the opposite of dividing by 2 is to multiply by 2. And I'm going to multiply by -2 because I want to get rid of the negative as well. Our variable always has to be positive. So if I'm multiplying by -2 here, I have to multiply by -2 over here as well. These 2's cross-reduce to 1's, so I'm left with positive m. I did multiply by a negative, so my inequality has to change direction. And then 5 times -2 is -10. Number 5. The opposite of a +4 is a -4. So I'm going to start with subtracting 4 from both sides. 4 minus 4 is 0. We have -r over -5. And 3. So these negatives actually add the opposite there. Negative over a negative is a positive. So this is actually +r divided by +5. The opposite of dividing by 5 is to multiply by 5. Multiply by 5 on the right side as well. These 5s cross-reduce to 1s, so we have 1r. We did not multiply by a negative, so our inequality stays the same direction. And 3 times 5 is 15. And our last one, we have to start with distributing. So I'm going to distribute the 2. 2 times b is 2b. 2 times 5 is 10. Move the 10 with its like term, 19. The opposite of positive 10 is negative 10. So we're subtracting 10 from both sides. That's 9. And 2b, this adds to 0. The opposite of multiplying by 2 is dividing by 2. So 9 divided by 2, we're going to leave that alone. That's 9 halves. We did not divide by a negative, so the inequality stays the same direction. These reduce to 1s, and we have 1b. And that's it. Thanks so much for joining me. Good luck studying. Wishing you all the best on your test. See you tomorrow.